Before I start this video, I want to acknowledge that I will be discussing eating disorders, so trigger warning for that if that's something that you need. So today's video, I want to talk about repeating cycles and what that looks like and how to stop and how to recognize if you're in one. And kind of talking about my own struggles with repeating cycles and where I'm at with them and where I want to be, and sort of normalizing the fact that it's cyclical for a reason, and the cyclicality of it is not a bad thing. It's not, you're not behind because you're repeating cycles. In fact, I think that what's super important to remember in your healing journey is that you are on a path of your own design, and because you're on a path of your own design, it means that your path contains wisdom in every step that you take upon it. It doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter how old you are still in a position of learning from your mistakes and learning from your successes. And that is like the tea at the end of the day, is that you are doing just fine exactly where you are. You're exactly where you need to be. Don't think that you aren't, because you are. I would love to make a longer video about that, and I definitely will. So keep a lookout for that one. But talking about cyclicality is a difficult thing, because cyclicality can mask itself in a way that seems that you don't consciously understand or know that you are repeating cycles. And I want you to know that one of the most important things, if not the most important thing in healing in general, is understanding that you're on a path, you're on a journey, you are on a route, and no part of that route is wrong, and no part of that route is are you truly left alone? Because every single thing that you're experiencing is meant to teach you something about your life and about yourself. And so with that out of the way and that mindset, you can understand how at any point in your journey, you are learning something. And even if it seems like it's the same thing that's happening over and over and over again, it's happening over and over and over again to saturate you, to make you understand that this may or may not be a good or healthy or helpful trait that you're experiencing. So talking about my own experiences with cyclicality, I have been and have honestly just recently ended this 4-year cycle of gaining and losing weight and having a mentality around gaining and losing weight that caused me to view each part of the year as a season of gaining weight or losing weight. And while I didn't understand that this was unhealthy at the time, it didn't feel right. It didn't feel good. It felt normal because that was what I was training my body to do and to experience for many years. But it didn't feel at a core level. It didn't feel like this was something that I was supposed to be doing. And I want you to know too that feeling that I had, that was completely subconscious. Every single time that I met myself in these parts of the years, I would be like, well, it's time for me to do this. And so let me talk a little bit more about that and get in a little bit more into detail. So for me, I thought subconsciously that I had to lose weight during the summer. I had to eat less, exercise more, have a beach body, or not even a beach body, literally feel presentable at the beach, feel presentable half naked. And in the winter, it was time for me to gain weight. I binge ate a lot, and I put on a lot of unhealthy weight and also feelings in that time, because what I was doing to myself was convincing myself that it's appropriate to put on more weight in the winter because I'm hibernating, or because I'm trying to supplement for this cold, dark time by filling myself up. And I was filling myself up in a way that was completely unhealthy. And again, also restricting myself in the summer in a way that was completely unhealthy. In the summer, I would like eat less, meaning like skip meals, literally like have smaller portions. In the summer, or I mean in the winter, it would be like junk food and eating a lot, like both in volume and also like in frequency. And what I was teaching myself was that it's acceptable for me to be fat, be fatter in the summer or in the winter, and be skinnier in the summer because, you know, the season's called for it. Like in the winter, I could cover up more. In the summer, I can't, so I have to be skinny. In the summer, I'm going to the beach often, so I have to be skinny. In the winter, nobody's really seeing me, so it doesn't matter. And also, the elements and the weather also played a lot of a part in this, because, you know, sad is something that a lot of people suffer from. But something that I really uncovered for myself was that what I was doing was trying to convince myself that it was not a bad thing to do either thing. And so like that's kind of what I mean by identifying how and what, and like what feelings you're having and what they're trying to tell you. Because most of the time, if not all of the time, your behavior is indicative of a subconscious like trait that you think that must be true, even if it has no basis in like reality or in logic. And for me, gaining and losing weight tracks to this like childhood years long mentality that I had, that being skinny is better than being fat, eating less is better than eating more, and by any cost, by any means, I need to be so focused on my body that it's really the only thing that I think about, and that it's really the only thing that matters about me. And eating disorders, having conversations about like eating disorders, both binge eating disorder and also anorexia, are not really something that I think we need to get super far into this conversation. Because my point here is that that was a cycle that I repeated for so very long, like I said, for 4 years, without realizing that the entire time what I really wanted was to feel like I could be in the middle somehow, that I could feel like I didn't have to swing between extremes in order to prove myself of being worthy of like existing. And your cycles may be something else. Your cycles may teach you or ask you or want you to be something that doesn't correlate with like body image issues and the need to like feel worthy. I mean, granted, that is a big part of like all healing, is this feeling of being worthy. But what I'm trying to say is that these cycles are here to show us where our like the greatest amount of our energy is being like zapped away from us by these cycles because they're unhealthy. When you think to yourself about the cycles that you've been experiencing in your life, whether they be in relation to mental health or, you know, eating disorders or engaging in excessive or restrictive behavior, ask yourself, what am I trying to avoid? What am I trying to chase after? And what am I attempting to show myself or prove to myself that I need in order to be what? Is it to be valued? Is it to be to feel like you're being seen, to feel like you matter? Like there's just so many things that you could take away from this like cyclicality. But it's definitely something to behold when you recognize just how much the cyclicality has like meaning in it. And I think that that meaning is something that, as I said before, can be completely like an unconscious like desire, But it's about bringing those unconscious feelings to the forefront. Something that really felt like validating for me as I was going through my healing journey and am going through my healing journey is that the way that we think about life doesn't always like appear naturally and like in front of us like an answer in a guidebook. Like, you, for the most part, are probably existing subconsciously, wanting subconscious needs to be fulfilled, wanting subconscious wants to be met. Like, there's so many things that you've learned and picked up on throughout your life that don't really register consciously to you anymore. And it's very possible to pick up on those unconscious things consciously, because for the most part, you are probably thinking to yourself these subconscious thoughts, but you don't have the wherewithal to identify them in the moment as either problematic or helpful. And it's about pausing for yourself and taking a moment in your spiral to recognize whether or not the behavior that you're exhibiting is or is not healthy or helpful to you. For me right now, I've honestly just now realized that I've been engaging in this unhealthy pattern for the last 4 years, and have just now realized that there's nothing telling me, like, you know, on a daily basis, other than my subconscious thoughts, that I need to look a certain way or I need to be a certain way in order to be loved, in order to be desired, in order to be like whatever it is. And the cyclicality for me stopped when I realized that there's nobody that I need to perform for, and there's nobody that I need to like show that I am valuable for, and there's nobody that's honestly matters enough for me to continue to restrict and damage and be in excess for my body. Nobody's worth that. Nobody's worth that time. Nobody's worth that energy, and nobody's worth those years off my life. Because if I keep doing this, chances are I will develop an even stronger subconscious block and subconscious thought form that takes much more to get rid of and much more to like even address. Like, it becomes much harder when you're more and more entrenched in your beliefs, because the subconscious thrives off of repetition. The more that you say to yourself that this is how it's supposed to be, the more that it's going to be that way. And I didn't want my unhealthy relationship to food and to my body to be the big thing that just like overtakes my life. I don't think that you want the thing that you keep being like cyclical about to like rule your life. This is reminding me of a conversation I was having with a friend. And I think that you can kind of apply this in like minor situations as well, if you consider that like as above, so below, as within, so without. Everything that you experience is a reflection of what's going on internally, and internally is projecting the same experiences on almost every facet of life, when it either relationships with yourself or relationships with others, cyclicality in your behavior about, let's just say like you have the need to be seen, that will play out not only in your relationship with yourself, but in your relationship with other people too. And you have to, or can, identify this cyclicality, this unhealthy behavior, by examining facets of your life and seeing where the same things keep popping up. I've spoken before about this like guy that I've chased or was chasing for a very long time. And I've just spoke about how the nature of my like cyclical relationship with food and my body has to do with this desire to be seen, this desire to be desired, this desire to feel wanted and accepted. The same thing is true for the reason why I was chasing mans, because I wanted to be seen, I wanted to feel desirable, I wanted to be wanted even when I wasn't. And going through life now, when I think about my relationship with my body and other people, like wanting to be seen, wanting to be wanted, other people can't give that to me, because like, what is some random fucking stranger gonna be like, I want you? Like, sure, maybe, But what good does that really do me if I'm like at the end of the day would rather have a better relationship with myself, which is more lasting, than a random impression that I made on a stranger, like who's living their own life and going through their own, projections and subconscious and all cyclicality, like all of these things. So ask yourself and examine for yourself where you see these patterns arise and what you might do about them when you consider that there's more to be said about your relationship with yourself and about your relationship with the world than there is this subconscious, often lack mindset-y external projection that you want from something else, someone else, or even yourself. Because at the end of the day, you have to be the one to give it to you, and you can give it to yourself. Talking about my relationship with the food and my body now is probably going to change, honestly. I have made the realizations that, like, I don't need to look a certain way for anybody or even in a certain season. What I really want and what is really important to me is to feel healthy and to feel good in my flesh and to feel like I'm not performing for people, to feel like I have this internal locus of control and perspective that matters more than an arbitrary, fleeting need or desire for some need that has existed from childhood to be met. Believe me when I say that I understand that it's difficult to get to the point of identifying the cycles. I get that it's difficult to identify, honestly, a lot of the more like healed things that I've said in this conversation that you may not have the easiest time identifying, even if you are existing in a cycle or even if you have needs that are unmet. But all of this comes down to a conversation that you have to have with yourself about what it means to be you and what it means to be healthy, what it means to be what you want to be rather than what you are or what you have been. And that first and foremost also comes with self-acceptance, and that doesn't mean self-love. It doesn't mean like even self-care or like self-appreciation. It literally is just, this is who I am, this is who I have been, this is who I'm gonna be if I keep doing this way, and this is who I want to be, and this is okay. I've noticed that in quite a few of my videos, especially the You Are Worthy conversation, is that I've said that it's okay to be where you are, and that there's no point, as I said in the beginning of this video, that there's no point in life where there's no purpose to your path, because your path is your path, right? And I think that this is even more like important here, because for me, that's the basis of self-compassion, is this identification with where you are and where you have been. It's not, like I said, it's not loving where you have been or where you are. It's not even like liking it. It's literally just identifying it as it is, bringing awareness and compassion to the moments that you have had in the past, knowing that you have been in a cyclical pattern for quite some time, and that perhaps it's time to change it, or perhaps it's time to just identify it for what it is and just let it go as it is. You don't need to make overnight changes. It's not how it works most of the time. Most of the time, it's like blindly stumbling through life, understanding not much more than this is where I have been and this is where I am, and understanding that even though you want more and even though there is more for you, you will go so much further just by knowing that this is what I'm experiencing and this is how it makes me feel and this is what I want and blah, blah, blah. I just realized that I didn't really talk about my relationship with food now and my body now and like where I am with this cycle. So for that, it's a weird kind of feeling sad for my old self and feeling happy for my new self, and feeling confused for my current self. Most of the time, it's a lot easier for me to just fall back into the old habits. Literally last night, I could have chosen to not meal prep the food that I bought that day. I could have chosen to not do the dishes. I could have chosen to not clean up after myself. I could have chosen not to clean my room, not to, all of these things. And a lot of the time, the thing with self-love and self-care is choosing to do the hard things so that you can have an easier time later. Knowing that you're having a hard time right now, and it'll probably be made worse if you keep doing the things the way that you have been doing. That it would have been a lot easier to not do the dishes after I made the food, but then it would have been more difficult for me the next day, especially after work, and after feeling the way that I have been feeling for the last few days. And knowing that right now I have the choice to take care of myself or the choice to abandon myself. I have the choice to make a new pattern, or I have a choice to remain in the same cycles that I have since I was a kid. That I have a choice to move into a place of self-love, or I have a choice to repeat the patterns of my childhood, which made me feel terrible, right? So it's not always about, it's not easy, really. It's not fun sometimes. It doesn't even feel good sometimes. And people say this about working out all the time. That you don't always choose to do the things because you feel good or because you feel motivated or because you feel blah, blah, blah. But it's about choosing to not repeat the pattern instead of choosing to repeat the pattern. And mama, believe me, in the moment, I didn't realize I can either choose to repeat the cycle or I can choose to not. It's not that. It's knowing that I can either choose to do hard things now and have an easier time later, or I can choose to do easy things now and have a hard time later. That's just about delaying gratification, but it's also about taking care of myself. And it's also about knowing that for me, I would rather have an easier time later. I'd rather take care of myself in the future than take care of myself right now. Because in a way, I am taking care of myself right now. And I'm also really showing myself that it's not the past that's what makes me. It's not the past that's what decides what I get to do in the future. It's what I decide to do right now instead. It's what I decide is more important for me in the future. It's more important for me right now to do this than it is for me to do something else. And honestly, it's that simple. And I want to acknowledge too that if you're in the thick of mental illness, of depression, of anxiety, of whatever, if you're really, really deep in there, and if you haven't done a lot of self-reflection or healing work, or even self-care or self-forgiveness or self-appreciation or self-acceptance, it's not going to feel easy. It's even going to feel quite impossible. And that's something that I felt many, many times. And I've chosen to do the easy thing in favor of despite having a hard thing presented in front of me, because that feels safer. But when you become more accustomed to choosing to do hard things as the safer option, that's when you start to make a shift in your behaviors and in your mindset and in the things that come in and out of your life, because you're not fighting from a place of survival anymore. You're not even thinking about it from a place of survival. You're thinking about it from a place of thriving and of changing and of growing. So don't be hard on yourself if you can't experience the hard thing right now, because you're probably already going through something extremely debilitating. And it's okay to choose to be for yourself in a way that is more protecting. I just want you to know that when you're ready to moving from a place of thriving rather than surviving, that route is available to you. All it takes is stopping and breathing and moving forward, just as it were. I still get to choose the easy route sometimes. This morning I had McDonald's instead of making myself breakfast. And I think that that's a really important thing too. I want to make a video about this as well. There's so many things I want to make videos about, but it doesn't always have to be black and white. It doesn't always have to be I'm choosing to do the healthy route. I'm choosing to cook my own food, to work out every single day. Like, it doesn't look like that all of the time. What it does look like is being accountable for the choices that you make, whether that be to eat McDonald's in the morning or not, and to be accountable for wanting to move in the direction of the person that you want to be. So instead of just having McDonald's, I had McDonald's and a banana. And for me, you know, that's a better choice than just having McDonald's, because I got a little potassium, I got a little fiber, and I got a little bit of like padding for my food. So maybe I'm not eating as fast, or maybe I'm not like only chewing like 2 or 3 times, you know. So I hope that this resonates for you. I hope that this makes sense, because for me, it was really confusing. Like, it was really hard to like stumble around in the dark and not really understand like where to go and like who to be and what to choose. And it was only through taking moments out of my day to check in with myself and like be present and to take steps towards healing that I got to this point where I'm maybe not in these cyclical patterns anymore, but I am taking what I've learned from them and going in the direction of the things that I want, because you will always find a teacher in yourself and in your past and in your mistakes and in your successes. There's always something to learn when it comes to learning and growing and being. So just remember that, and just remember that it doesn't always have to be perfect. It doesn't have to look good. It doesn't have to like be anything other than good enough, because good enough is still good. I hope that you're doing well and that this helped you. Thank you so very much for being here. I love you, and bye.